Hello and welcome to the special on the squirrels.in. Over the last 24 hours, we've seen people from across the country giving rather mixed responses about this verdict which was passed by the Supreme Court yesterday, which has now been followed up in full pursuit, in full measure, by a High Court in Rajasthan as well, where stray dogs, sterilized or non sterilized, are being asked now by the municipal authorities, by the local authorities to be kept in dog shelters. Exactly how can this happen in a country like ours? What is the kind of infrastructure that we have? Is this, in very brutal terms, an order which will lead to mass culling of dogs across the NCR region and who knows, maybe in other parts of the country as well? With me, someone who's been looking at this case closely, Anish Gawande, a politician, but also someone who tracks this space of animal welfare very, very closely. Anish, thanks so much for joining us here today. Let me
Thank you
first
very
begin
much
by
for
asking
having me,
you, Anish.
Bhupendra and great to be on your show for the very first time.
Great. I hope this is the first of many such moments where you and I can get to speak to each other. But Anish, tell me, what do you make out of the order which was given by the Supreme Court just yesterday that all stray dogs, all instances of dog bites which have been reported in the NCR region, 35,000, or just over 35,000, because of those instances of dog bites, stray dogs should not be on the road, they should be in dog shelter. Do you think it's possible?
You know, Bhupendra, the challenge and the problem with this verdict is it is neither logical nor logistical. You know, the reality is that we still don't know how many stray dogs there are in Delhi. The last time they were counted was 10 years ago. So, how can a Supreme Court, in all of its wisdom, pass an order requiring every single stray dog in the NCR region to be sent to a shelter when you simply don't know how many shelters we need? Now, when the question comes of shelters, there are no government funded shelters in the NCR region. There are 20 temporary shelters that currently exist. So, within 8 weeks, the same MCD, whose incompetence has led to this problem to begin with, by not sterilizing dogs, by not vaccinating dogs, is suddenly going to be able to build, create, and transfer so many shelters. So, the reality is that this is an illogical and logistically impossible to execute order.
But Anish, don't you think, Anish, that the real problem now, the real problem before us today, Anish, is that there have been so many instances of dog bites, children, feeling scared of coming out to play in open gardens just to go out because of the rampant increase in the population of stray dogs. How do you address that question then?
Vendraji, I am completely on board with you. I'm not an animal rights activist. I love pets. I own cats, not dogs, but have many friends who do. But the reality is that this is a public policy problem. The increase in the number of stray dogs is a problem that nobody can ignore. The fact of the matter is that this is the wrong solution to the right problem. Nobody is disagreeing with the problem at hand. But what are you going to do with this solution? You're going to transfer all of the stray dogs into these shelters. What happens next? Stray dogs from neighboring areas come and take their place. Stray dogs who are not vaccinated, stray dogs who are not spayed or neutered or sterilized. What does that lead to? An increase in rabies cases. We've seen this the world over. Romania tried this. They got an increase in rabies cases because their shelters were full and the dogs who had been taken to shelters were replaced by other dogs onto the streets, right? You've seen this in other parts of the world as well, like Turkey, where it basically meant a mass extinction of dogs and a mass culling of dogs, only for strays to return to the streets a few months later. Because Rinku ke papa is going to buy a dog for Rinku and then abandon it on the streets, and somebody else is going to do the same. And you're not going to penalize these dog owners who let their dogs sort of go onto the streets, and you're instead going to create a system which constantly requires the MCD to keep taking dogs to shelters. How often are you going to take dogs to shelters? For how long are you going to keep these shelters active? The court said CCTVs in every shelter. You can't put CCTVs in government schools yet. You want to put them in dog shelters.
Where is the money?
Where is the money? You know, Rekha Gupta ji has come out very proudly claiming we support this order, we're going to execute this. And her own party member, Menaka Gandhi ji, has shown how it will cost 15,000 crores, not to mention a recurring expenditure which will occur if there are new stray dogs. Right? The Delhi Jal Board is bankrupt. The DTDC doesn't have enough money for new buses. And
So what's the way
suddenly the
forward,
Delhi is getting 50,000 crores.
Then, Anish, what's the way forward? do we say that the menace of stray dogs is something which will remain a menace, that we can't do anything about it because we don't have the resources? Can we reach some kind of a common meeting ground?
Absolutely. Bhupendraji, the problem is the same people who think that putting up hoardings for G20 in front of slums will solve poverty are the ones who think that shifting all stray dogs to shelters will cure rabies. So the number one priority is a comprehensive anti-rabies policy. Ask any government hospital in Delhi whether they have rabies vaccines. They don't. The reality is today it is almost impossible to get a rabies vaccine unless you're willing to pay in a private facility. Two, if the comprehensive rabies program needs to be rolled out, you need to look at two major carriers of rabies, rats and monkeys. You're doing nothing about them. The 56 rabies cases, and let me remind you, there were only 56 rabies related deaths in India in 2024, according to a reply submitted to Parliament. Nobody else other than Parliament. Contradicting WhatsApp University claims that 2,000 people die of rabies every day. But 56 is also too many. But if you want to prevent those 56 people, are you not accounting for the fact that out of those 56, some also die because of rats? In fact, a majority die because of rat bites and a large number because of monkey bites. What are you doing about that? And third and finally, the solution, unfortunately, is not an easy one. Magic wand solutions never work.
And what is the solution? That's what I'm trying to understand. See, I'm as much a dog lover as maybe you or anyone else, but I'm also a parent of two children who are not dog lovers. And I see this and it deeply pains me each day when I see my kids being unwilling to go out and just to go out and play in the garden because there is someone or the other, some child or the other who ends up being bitten by dogs. Then what do you do? What's the solution then?
Unfortunately, again, right, I think the solution is not a magic wand, and it is to vaccinate, sterilize, and release. Those dogs who are rabid need to be humanely put down. Those dogs who have bitten people or are at risk of biting people or are aggressive need to be relocated. The reality is that is the logical solution. It is the implementable solution. When you try and create solutions like these, which in my opinion are demonetization type of solutions, right? You suddenly imagine कि एक रात में हम सब fix कर देंगे. They don't work. I again agree with you completely. But what will happen if today you take away all of these stray dogs and tomorrow dogs who are from neighboring areas come in and they're more vicious than these dogs? Will the taxpayer pay to shift all of these dogs again? 15,000 more crores? Then who will we blame? See, the Supreme Court in all of its wisdom is an interpreter of the law, not an inventor of the law. There is a reason why the ABC guidelines were put in place in consultations with experts, with scientific research. This was the path forward. The court has ignored the Prevention of Cruelties to Animal Act, the ABC guidelines, and like many have said, this is an argument passed in anger, maybe in haste, by judges who do not have an understanding of the logic of this case, right?
Well, what has happened today, Anish, what has happened today, and I was tweeting about it a short while back, that the Supreme Court has passed another order today saying that there are more stray dogs around the corridors because there's leftover food which is being thrown around. So now there should be proper monitoring of leftover food being put in the right dustbins. And it makes me wonder whether you need the Supreme Court now to be reading out the Riot Act in terms of where should a dog go and where should this leftover food go.
Bhupendra, the core problem is today in Gurgaon, garbage has not been picked up for weeks. People are now saying Blinkit should start a garbage takeaway system. When your municipal authorities fail, and this is your problem and my problem, right? Because we know our MPs, we know our MLAs, we know our Prime Minister, do we know our corporator, do we know our municipal councillor? And we don't, unfortunately. A vast majority of us do not vote in the MCD elections for people who are meant to fix these issues. Your corporator and your councillor is responsible for fixing these issues, and they've abdicated all responsibility. Where is the Municipal Commissioner of Delhi in all of this? Where are the corporators of Delhi in all of this? It is their spectacular failure over the last decade that has led to this, and yet they are the ones not being held accountable. So, again, the Supreme Court cannot intervene and become the only sort of administrator in this country, because then we're headed into a banana republic.
Okay. Anish, thanks so much. Thanks so much for joining us, Anish, and sharing your thoughts with us. Here's hoping that mass culling of dogs scenario that we're looking at, hopefully that doesn't play out, and hopefully there can be some kind of a common meeting ground which can be arrived at. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you very, very much once again.